Hi everyone, this is Matt, your host for today. I will try to do my best to explain to you how I made the music for Hallownest Vocalized, which is, if you don't know, a mod for hollowknight that adds full English voiceover to every single character, lore tablet, and diary, entry, and whatever is a line of text in the game. And I will leave some links in the description if you want to download the mod if you haven't already. So without further ado, I'd say we can hop in some intro. So let's start with some context. I was initially contacted by CC Makai in August 2022. He asked me to do the music for the launch trailer, the music that now is known as Reclaim Hallownest. And of course I said, yes, why not? I mean, it's a cool project and it's a nice way to also make music, not for myself for once, but to help someone else. And it was really good because I also had to fulfill all the requests that I got from CC, and so I also had to push myself outside of my boundaries to make something maybe a little bit different, and it was really a nice experience. So I worked on Reclaim Hallownest since August 2022 up to December, where I was more or less okay with the music. In fact, it was a long process because we did lots of different versions. I kept to add things, remove things. We had a long discussion. I had periods where I was working on it, periods where I was doing other things. So it was like this long but not very dense work. And then since we finished the music and CC wanted to launch the trailer and the mod at the beginning of January 2023, I had like 2 weeks more and to experiment, and I had this idea to make a tune, a music piece for the title screen, which is basically a remix of Reclaim Hallownest. It's like a stripped down version to a really more calmer and soft atmosphere. And also I had this crazy idea for me to ask CC to add a voice actor choir, which I wasn't ready to mix and to EQ, but I managed to do it in some way, and I think it was really cool to do because there were lots of people that were keen enough to help me with this, and I'm really grateful for all their effort, even if they were not singers. I'm not a singer myself, but I think it's cool to just try to sing and all together make a choir. And then since I did this music and I knew CC also needed additional music for the credits for the mod, I also said to him, why do you have to use a music that is already in game if I can do more tracks? So I asked him, how long do you need, how many minutes do you need to cover? And he said, I need to cover 8 minutes. And well, so from there I did also the 3 final pieces, which are basically Reclaim Hallownest slow down and with a little more of an orchestral arrangement, less drumming, less guitar, more orchestra. And then I did Voices of the Kingdom, which is basically a rearrangement of the voice actor choir in multiple different ways. And then I also had this idea to write some lyrics, which came very easy to me. I write the lyrics pretty fast, and also I wanted them to be sung by possibly Marisa, because I think it was a nice thing to do, to have a character singing a song for the night, which we all know is not doing very well at the end of the game. And so this is pretty much it. I was done by the second week of January. Then, well, the project was delayed a little bit because there were other issues, but I'm very happy we managed to launch it, and I'm really happy to see the response that people in general gave to the music. So thank you very much, and now we are going to go into the cool stuff. First thing I did when we started to work on the music was to propose to CC a couple of tunes that I did pretty much in 2020, I think. It was 2020. I had a couple of jams that I recorded, and they were discarded projects. I never used them in any way, and one of those projects was this one that I will play to you right now. Okay, so this is where the Reclaim Hallownest music came from. CC liked the way the music was displayed in the second part of the song. So we started from there. I took the old project and I deleted a lot of things, and then from there I started to build the new music, and that's pretty much it. This is the beginning, and we're gonna get to the next part, which is the real interesting one. Okay, so this is Mixcraft 9 Pro Studio. It's my DAW. It's the digital audio workstation that I use to make music. It's a simple interface with just the right things for me. It's not as famous as FL Studio or Ableton Live or Cubase or Logic Pro, but it does the job. So I used this software since I'm using this software since I started to make music, and now I'm gonna show you how I organize this project, which is Reclaim Hallownest, also known at the time as Spoiler Trailer. So in the first thing that we did was to have a general idea for the trailer. So CC sent me a video with some voice acting here and there. He told me how we wanted to display different things in different parts of the video. So we basically divided this piece of music in 5 parts, but I will dissect each part in a second. So the music is mainly organized as following in my ordinated chaos. We have some vocals that CC sent me to get references. I also use some effects. I use some samples from the game, such as the nail sound or some dash sound, things like that. Then I basically started to add instruments to the equation. So well, here we mainly have all the voice acting muted, but I kind of organized it, chopped it to make it fit to the music, so we could have a reference for the trailer when the music was going to be edited in the video. The project is mainly organized in sections. I use colors to kind of identify different kind of instruments. So here we have some drum section, both orchestral drums, samples. Then we have some effects. Then I have a section which is dedicated to piano, to celestes or carillons kind of sound. Then we have other drums, real bass, acoustic guitars. We have some winds. We have other mallets and xylophones, or again percussive sounds of various genre. And then going down we have a harpsichord, which I used to kind of recreate a vibe similar to the Mantis Lord's host from the game. And then I also have a very big string section, so we have some violins, some cellos, some orchestral strings, some solo strings. This one is an audio that I got from Gauthier, the Farloon musician, which helped me to get an additional sound to kind of have more variation in the string section. Then I have some wind section with an ensemble of winds. Of course, the brass section, which is a fundamental section when you are called mat and you make music. And then I have some other piano and some old violins and brass from the old project that I kept because I liked the sound of those. And then basically down here I just have muted section. Here is the whole project that I moved away so I could focus on the new one. And last but not least, some electric guitars, which are kind of cool, and I kept because I also thought that a way to make a familiar tune but with something new if compared to the original host is to use a different instrument. And since I'm a guitarist and guitar is not present in Hollowknight, I thought that could be a nice addition to kind of recreate a familiar vibe but with something new on top of it. So basically this is the size of the project. I mainly used 60 different instruments, I think, more or less. And now I'm going to dissect each section in detail.
Higher beings, these words are for you alone.
So, part one. Part one is the part where the trailer starts and where the Pale King is saying his lines. So if I just turn them on, this is part one.
Higher beings, these words are for you alone.
So this is the introduction of the trailer. So what I wanted to do, since I knew the Pale King was speaking, is I wanted to give this sense of mystery, suspension, and so I chose to use some piano with some layer of reverb on it. Mainly I used Celeste, which is kind of a mallet. And on top of that, because I cannot speak in English, I used a piano which is called Oshwari. It's a preset built in Mixcraft 9, which is basically a piano with some reverb and oscillations on it, which is really nice and can give kind of an atmosphere, a big atmosphere. Then we decided to add this little fast movement, so to give a sense of rise and descent into the kingdom. At least this is how I see it. I also used a cello to give some little bit of background. And also in the final build-up, I used these violins, fast violins, to give this sense of tension rising up. I basically made the midis in a way that I have a rise in the velocity of the notes, so the volume is going up and down and is giving this sense of oscillations to it. And finally I also have these little winds up here that are kind of positive in vibe, and they give a sense of also preparation to discovery, to something new that is going to happen very soon. And then we have the nail sound, which I really like to use for transition because it's really sharp and gets us to the next section, which is part 2.
What a surprise.
So part 2, it's a longer part, which I can let play right now, so you can understand from where it starts and where it ends. And it's mainly divided in 2 parts. It's part 2 and part 2.5, because the first section is focused more on displaying general voice acting of some of the characters, such as Squirrel and the Mantis. And then there is part 2.5, which is a part, basically my favorite part in the whole piece, which is the part that it's used to display all the characteristics of the mod. So the fact that they voiced a lot of different things, not only characters. So I will let the part 2 play. First part is preparation. Main body, which is some variation that we call green puff. Suspension to change the mood and prepare for part 2.5, which is right now. So this is part 2. Mainly I started from the old project, so I have this first part which has mainly violins. This part 1. My string section is made using Albion 1, which is a cool preset from Spitfire Audio, and in this case I use the spiccato violins, so I have this fast violin with strong attack and really a strong energy to them. I'm not really good at explaining, but this is the vibe that I was looking for. Then I added some orchestral toms and drums to get an introduction, which starts from a low volume and then goes up. And of course I also have normal drums, which are mainly from the old project. I use addictive drums, and which is a cool drum kit with a lot of good sounding. So basically, since the old project, I used those parts. This is the part where I kinda use the Celeste and the winds to recall the green puff atmosphere, because I really like the vibe of green puff. it has this kind of really an exploration of an expedition into beautiful and world full of life. So I really wanted to recreate that also in this section. So I kinda trying to encapsulate in this section the spirit of adventure, which is renewed by the mod, which voices all the characters. And then going forwards and re-enabling every single track. We have this part where I mainly use pizzicato strings to give more of a sense of the fungal wastes, which has really this kind of vibe in the original game. So basically what I was trying to recreate here was the path that you follow as the knight when you start the game. So you descend into Hallownest, you get into the Forgotten Crossroads, then you move to Greenpath with the Celeste kind of vibe sound, and then you move to Fungal Wastes. So it's mainly a way to follow the steps of the knight into this descent. Also, this part is where we have the Mantis lore, the Mantis voice acting. So it's kind of nice to have this little addition of the music. And mainly I use strings to build up also. So and this is pretty much all there is to say of part 2. I have some brass to underline the movements. Maybe they are not really sounding that good by themselves, but in the mix they sound really good, I think. Some descend in the winds also to move to the section. Also, this pattern, it's really cool. I made it using a preset from Albion 1, which is mainly a tool that make oscillating patterns and such. And I liked it because it sounds like a bouncing guitar of some sort. Not really a real one, but it's really a nice addition to add this kind of bouncing vibe, like the same bouncing we get in the Fungal Wastes when we bounce on the shrooms. Then we have part 2.5, which is my favorite. It's in odd timing. I did some some drumming, which is really fast and feel a lot of tension, but also release. With a really long rise at the end, just in the velocity of the notes. The core of this part is the harpsichord, which is right here. by the winds and this part is really trying to recall the vibe that we get while facing some of the coolest enemies in game. For example, well, not really, such as the Dunk Defender, which I really like because it's really a positive character, which add this really joyful kind of mood to the combat. So this is what I wanted to recreate. We also this sense of a marching drum. Movements are also supported by the brass in the second part. Actually, I don't have this much to say. I just went with the vibe. I just make the midis as they should be. I am not a musical theorist. I am not trained, so I just go with the flow, and this is where the flow led me. And I'm really proud of this part in overall. So I don't think there is much more to say, and I think we can move to part 3.
I strike you down.
Okay, so mainly the idea for this part is to display again voice acting for some of the characters. Most of this part is basically dedicated to the Markov speech, so we kinda wanted to have our eyes in the music, arise with the things Markov says, and this is mainly a part where we are transitioning since the initial presentation to the final parts, which are 4 and 5, where most of the fighting is displayed. So mainly we have at the beginning, or more precisely between part 2 and part 3, we have this abrupt stop. This is a really sharp transition, which kinda give a sense of stop, and then we're starting again, and we're starting with Hornet giving her lines. So I use this part, which is from the old project. And this is kinda doing a reprise of the main melody from part 2, but it's trying to elaborate it further in a different way. On top of this, I have a lot of strings. Mainly this is a string section part, so if I just isolate all the strings, we should be able to get a better idea of what's going on. So mainly I have this really slow start with lower strings, and then I'm building up to the part where Markov will start to give his speech, and so as the music progresses, I have also the winds, which give more sustain to it, and then we have the brass section, which comes in more or less in the middle of this part to add some power to the movement. Then we have this rise up and then a release in volume, so we go back down. And this is a part that really inspires me, more like this, again, this sense of adventure, of discovery, of also a little bit of danger, but not too much. Then we have this really fast part, which starts to underline more the lines of Markov. And then we have this really super fast part, which it's really fun, and it's mainly made by two different things. On one side, I need to silence something before we move on. Okay. Basically we have a rising part, but also we have a descending part, and together we get this really nice I'm going up, but I'm going down, and it's really nice. I never did it before. I like the way it sounds, and it's really good to move to the next section, which is the fighting section. So it's really strong. I think it sets the correct vibe for the next section. And also in this part we can hear a better I have this violin, which I asked to the Falun musician, which is the one with the best strings in town, and I use this to add some variation, which it's really maybe not that easy to spot, but I think it does a good job, because otherwise I would have only my string section, which is good, but it's limited to one kind of sound. So with this addiction, I can have a more different and full sound for the strings. And this is pretty much it for the section for part 3, and I think we can move to part 4.
Enjoyful combat!
So part 4 is the strongest part of all. I basically have all the instruments at once. So I have a strong brass section, I have a strong wind section, strong string section, I have harpsichords, I have celestes, I have basically everything I used. Acoustic guitars to give more rhythm, I have bass, I have drums. Now I'm gonna let it play for a minute. So basically we have this super powerful start, which is the fighting section. I can isolate a couple of instruments. For example, I used again harpsichord to get this really powerful feeling of and also I think in the original game harpsichord are basically assigned to identify combat, so I really wanted to have them in this first part. Of course, they don't sound really good by themselves again, but the cool thing of having virtual instruments, even if they are not really that good sounding, is that when you then use them into an ensemble, you can play with the mixing and the EQ to make them work really nice all together. Also in this section I have basically all of the mallets I can think of. Also, I use automations to change the volumes and shapes so I can get a more dynamic range in the overall in the track. For example, here I didn't like the sound of the Celeste in the first part, and I used a rising up in the automation of the volume of the MIDI to make them come out in the mix just in the final part. They come up, but they are really hard to notice. They are just that tiny little detail that it could be here, it could be not, but I think if you are careful enough to listen, you might like the fact that it's here, even if maybe it's not that much needed. What else could be said? Mainly I have drums, bass, and acoustic guitars that are original from the old recording. Actually, this recording part is new. You can hear the difference since I used some of the old recordings I did in 2020 with my old acoustic guitar. Meanwhile, in the meantime, I just got a new one, and I can also make direct recordings that maybe they are not sounding exactly like real recording with a real microphone, because in this case I record the guitar going directly in with a jack connection, but it's really faster, more clean, less noise, and they sound good in the mix. So they're like more clean. Now we're back to the old recordings because I like this part. The part in the middle was changed, so I had to record again guitars, and then we moved to organs. Then here in this part we have a general slowdown in the BPM of the track, which is originally very fast. It's set to 170 BPM, and here in the last part I'm slowing down, going from part 4 to part 5. So I set up a change in the BPM, a local change that slows down to 160 and then down to 140, and this is nice to give a sense of slowing down. I want to hold all this power that I released, because now I'm going towards the end and I did something more quiet, more relaxing after this great burst of musical energy. I also have a reduction in the volume that helps to get a smooth transition towards what's next. So I have also automation basically on every instrument. Here, for example, I have a volume automation for the drums, but pretty much the same thing happens for every other virtual instruments. The change in BPM is effective on the MIDI files that are actually slowed down, while for the audio files like bass and guitar, I of course slow down in my playing since it's live recording. As for the string section, again, it's the same thing as part 2 and 3. I have lots of different instruments. Here I throw down also some viola and other solo stuff to get some additional boost to the sound of this section. Thing that I did here was to also automate the velocity of the strings to give this sense of rise and then release. which is really nice. It helps to underline, like gives a rhythm, and also again it helps me to underline the sense of slowing down, because it's kind of like I'm holding the brakes a little bit, and then again and then again until I finally stop. Also, what could be said about the brass section? The brass section in this case is doubled. I have the normal brass that are giving mainly the rhythm, the root notes, and some little bit of embellishments, but not that much. But then I added also this really low brass, which they are really subtle, but I really like the dirt they add to the track. They add this little bit more powerful color to the brass section. Also, what I like to do is to mainly do the root notes, but at the end of every MIDI section I like to add these variations, because they kind of give dynamics to the music. So and I add different variation to avoid to get stuck in the same thing. I don't want to make loops. I want to make music that evolves. So and again, every time the cue to the MIDI section is different, because I want to avoid to repeat myself. The same thing also happens to the string section, to the wind section, to every kind of instrument that I use. I also used different transpositions for these pieces, so I can play with an octave above or maybe an octave below, so I get a more full sound overall. And I think this is everything I had to say of this part. Oh, of course there is some electric guitar, since I kept the old recordings. Of course, electric guitar is not something that you should use to identify Hollowknight, but I wanted to keep these parts because they add this extra layer again of dirt to the rhythm section, to the guitar rhythm section, and it's really cool because I think then in the final mix they are not that much present, but they can give that little bit of extra boost. I think they make kind of a difference, so that's why I left them.
The Eternal Kingdom.
And finally, moving to part 5, which is the end of the trailer video. I want to slow down, and after I slow down for part 5, I want to really make a place of suspension. I want to make a sound that, after all the power that came before, and after all the things that were seen and heard before, allows the listener to soak in a little bit at the end. So it's like more of a little space to reflect on everything that has been seen, and also it's a preparation for the final lines that are again spoken by the Pale King voice actor. So I'm gonna play the part. Okay, here mainly I have a violin cue overlapped with spiccato violins. The spiccato violins, again, they have this rise and fall in the velocity, so they oscillates up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's the base of the sound I wanted to create. On top of that, I have piano. They are two different pianos and a Celeste, which I used to recreate more or less the same vibe that you can hear when you defeat some of the bosses in Hollow Knight. So there is at the end of the fight this little piano that plays a little leitmotif, and I wanted to do the same things to add this correlation with the original soundtrack. Also, I used what is played at the end of some of the fights, so it's a sample from Enter Hallownest. It's really low. I just wanted to get the vibe, but without having it central to the ending. And on top of this, I used, of course, a sample of Marissa's song, which is also and always very cool to use every time I can get the opportunity.
Only civilization, the eternal kingdom, Hallownest.
Okay, in this case I have really a lot of reverb on this track, but it's just to give you also a context. The Pale King voice was used in sync with the music, so that the last line,
civilization, the eternal kingdom, Hallownest.
The last word, Hallownest, it's hitting the same spot of the final note. So this is the idea behind this last part, to slow down, to give this this final chill atmosphere where the final voice is displayed. And this is pretty much everything I had to say. I am not the best at explaining. This was a little experiment I did, but it's nice, since lots of people asked me in the past to show how I make music. Now this is not exactly how I make music, since I just showed you a final product, and but I think it's helpful to get a general idea of how I layer things, of how I approach music, which is without thinking that much. I just do the task, I just go with the flow, I just go where the inspiration takes me. And I hope it was clear enough for you to understand.